To please his true love, my husband personally delivered me to a nursing home, where I was shackled with chains, living in conditions akin to an animal and subjected to brutal beatings by a group of elderly men. By the time he finally recalled my existence, I was 6 months pregnant and reduced to the lowest form of plaything. My husband, eyes bloodshot, pinned me against the wall, hoarsely demanding to know whose illegitimate child I carried. I offered a polite smile. It's yours, but I've already scheduled an abortion. Subsequently, I terminated the pregnancy, left a divorce agreement, and departed without further notice. Charles, typically aloof and composed, searched for me frantically across vast distances. Anna, I was wrong, I love you. Can we start anew? When Charles opened the confinement room, the sudden influx of light caused tears to stream from my eyes. Observing my disheveled state, Jasmine, his true love standing aside, laughed. Anna, Brother Charles sent you here to instill composure. Why do you resort to tears and tantrums upon meeting? Too afraid to speak, I trembled as I wiped my tears with my sleeve, forcing a servile smile. Mr. Charles, you've finally come for me. May I leave now? Charles, initially intending to enter the confinement room, paused upon hearing me, scrutinizing me while instinctively covering his nose. I was aware that the odor here was nauseating, and I recognized that my filthy, bloated appearance, resembling a pig, was repulsive. However, having been confined in this room for a full 5 days with nothing inside, I was compelled to address my hygiene needs on the floor. After a prolonged moment, Charles lowered his hand, his handsome brows furrowing. Anna, how did you end up in this state? I maintained a polite smile, displaying 8 teeth, yet tears fell uncontrollably. I'm sorry for disappointing you, but I've now learned composure. Please release me. Charles stared at me with a peculiar expression, understandably so. Anyone witnessing an obese woman with a stiff smile and tears streaming like rain would react similarly. Jasmine obstructed Charles's view and turned to her brother Victor. Brother, what's wrong with her? How did she become so fat and disgusting? In the past, I would have immediately leapt up, berating Jasmine loudly. Yet, upon seeing Victor approach swiftly, my entire body shook like a sieve. I was wrong, I was wrong. I won't compete with Jasmine anymore, please don't. Victor laughed heartily and loudly explained that I had been locked up because I intentionally harmed elderly residents incapable of self-care in the nursing home. He then entered the dark room, covertly stabbed my chest with a steel needle, and threatened in a low voice, "You'd better keep everything that happens here to yourself. Otherwise, I'll surely drag you back. The old men here are quite reluctant to see you go." Upon hearing old men, I collapsed uncontrollably to the ground, a wave of wetness surging beneath me, intensifying the foul stench in the confinement room shortly thereafter. Standing at the doorway, Charles could no longer suppress a few retches. Anna, have you discarded all your manners into a dog's belly? My vision was already blurred by tears, yet I knew I couldn't forsake this opportunity, otherwise, I would truly perish in this filthy nursing home. I'm not afraid of death, but I cannot die here. Struggling to control my trembling body, I dragged my numb legs toward Charles, the man I had loved for 10 years. Mr. Charles, please let me out, I won't dare again. I'll disappear and stay far away from you, please. As I spoke, I continuously kowtowed, my heavily pregnant belly slowed my movements, but I persisted, striking my head repeatedly against Charles's expensive leather shoes. Jasmine pulled Charles back a few steps, pouting discontentedly. Brother Charles, taking her to the old man's birthday banquet would be so embarrassing. Why not just leave her here? I widened my eyes in terror, crawling to Jasmine's side and clinging desperately to her skirt. Miss Jasmine, I won't dare any more. I'll divorce Mr. Charles. Before I could finish, a hand abruptly pulled me up. I looked up in surprise to see Charles's eyes filled with scrutiny. Did they bully you? Not daring to meet his gaze, I lowered my head in trepidation. No, no one bullied me. I'm doing well. Look, I've even gained weight. Over the 6 months in the nursing home, I gained 80 pounds. Not only did they find it repulsive, but even I felt nauseated by my own excess flesh. When I was first sent here, I assumed it was merely Charles's usual tactic to protect Jasmine and humiliate me, so I resisted through fasting, hoping to compel him to retrieve me as before. But I was mistaken. I starved myself to the point of fainting, yet he didn't come due to the fasting. My pregnancy showed signs of miscarriage, and only upon seeing the winding trail of blood did I realize I was pregnant. I intended to call Charles with this news, but my phone was seized, and I was restrained with chains around my neck and limbs, trapped in the nursing home. Victor feared this child would jeopardize Jasmine's position and worried that if something happened to the child, Charles wouldn't spare him. He simply forced me to eat daily. Every meal here required me to consume 3 large bowls of fatty meat, and as long as my eyes were open, I had to keep eating. If I paused or vomited midway, Victor would bind me to the bed, allowing those lustful elderly men to inflict torture upon me so painful and revolting that even a slight recollection made me tremble uncontrollably. Yet Charles, ever fastidious about cleanliness, didn't release me. Instead, he gripped me tighter. "Didn't you always cherish beauty? Why did you let yourself become like this? I only wanted you to find peace in the nursing home. Is this how you retaliate against me?" My face still bore that standard smile as I flattered him. "It's my laziness and greed. It's my fault. I'll definitely change in the future. Please take me out." Seeing me still smiling, Charles released me with resentment. "Enough. Who are you putting on this act for? Hurry up and follow." With that, he pulled Jasmine and turned to leave. Fearing the loss of my chance to escape, I crawled on my hands and knees, dragging my cumbersome body behind them. Charles walked a great distance before realizing I hadn't kept up. Turning back, he saw me wriggling on the ground like a worm. He was nearly driven to madness. "Anna, if you truly don't want to leave, you can stay here for life. Jasmine is kind-hearted and surely won't mind how much you eat." Jasmine's gaze toward me was piercing. "If you've heard clearly, hurry up and crawl over. You're as fat as a pig now. Do you still think pretending to be weak will make Brother Charles pity you?" I desperately wanted to escape this place, but those old men relished my screams during their abuse. The last time, they kicked my spine so hard that I've been unable to stand since. Victor, who had been trailing us, hurriedly intervened. Anna was being playful and fell, injuring her leg. I wanted to take her to the hospital, but she adamantly refused, saying she wanted to remain this way to make you, Mr. Charles, regret. I tried to inform you, but she stopped us from disclosing her condition. Upon hearing this, Charles's face darkened like the bottom of a pot. He stepped closer, staring at me intently. "Anna, you've disappointed me greatly. You're as vicious as ever, trying to ruin Jasmine's reputation this way." With that, he flung his sleeve, pulled Jasmine, and left without looking back. Watching their departing figures, my pupils contracted. I let out a piercing scream, and then lost all awareness. When I awoke, I was in a hospital with tubes inserted throughout my body, yet the empty special care ward bore no trace of Charles. I withdrew my searching gaze and let out a self-mocking bitter laugh. Indeed, how could I dare expect him to be watching over me? Charles had always loathed me intensely. It was I who persistently clung to him, and he only retrieved me to perform a role at his father's birthday banquet. He didn't love me, but his father recognized only me as his daughter-in-law, not out of affection, but for the sake of business reputation. I suspected that after this perilous banquet, Charles would surely propose divorce. I pressed the bedside bell, and soon a nurse rushed in. Observing me on the bed, she covered her nose. "Mr. Charles said you should go home on your own once awake." I nodded obediently, nearly falling as I rose. The young nurse darted far away. "No wonder Miss Jasmine says you love to pretend. There's only me here. Who are you acting for? Your leg was merely a nerve issue, now healed, so leave quickly." I didn't retort, instead slowly walking out of the ward step by step, leaning on the wall. Reaching the inpatient entrance, I saw Charles and Jasmine chatting and laughing from a distance. Fear surged within me, and I hurriedly tried to evade, but my long atrophied legs barely obeyed. With a loud crash, I fell, shattering the glass door of the inpatient department. Jasmine turned at the sound, momentarily stunned, then burst into exaggerated laughter. Look, everyone, Anna's as fat as a pig, still trying to feign weakness with a deliberate fall like before. I'm so far away this time, does she still want to frame me? Following her voice, I looked up, only then noticing several of Charles's friends trailing behind them. They approached me while talking. Charles looked down at me, his eyes brimming with disgust. Anna, if you want to stay by my side properly, cease your petty tricks. Last time you pretended to be lame, but I saw you take those 2 steps quite nimbly just now, Charles remarked, his friends promptly echoing him. Amid a chorus of sharp accusations, I silently lowered my head. I couldn't resist, they held incriminating evidence, and if I revealed my suffering, they'd surely retaliate by spreading it all. Seeing my lack of response, Jasmine boredly linked arms with Charles. This woman is still so scheming, brother Charles, let's go. Observing the intimate pair, the crowd jeered. Charles, this woman's as fat as a pig, Jasmine suits you better. If she hadn't shamelessly handed over all the shares, do you think Charles would want her? I remained silent, but Charles suddenly shouted, enough. My heart skipped half a beat. Was he defending me? I cautiously looked up at Charles, only to see Jasmine roll her eyes at me. Brother Charles hates it when people mention Anna's shares, don't you know that? At this, the previously rowdy group fell silent. My heart resumed its rhythm, not for my defense, but to shield his fragile ego. Yet what followed was beyond my expectations. Charles shook off Jasmine clinging to him, squatted before me, and gently grasped my ankle. You're bleeding so much, doesn't it hurt? Following his gaze, I looked at my legs, riddled with glass shards and dripping with blood. Only then did the others notice my injuries, gasping and covering their mouths. But I had endured pain 1,000 times worse. Compared to the torment in the nursing home, this injury was insignificant. I raised my head, meeting Charles's eyes. I'm not in pain, I want to leave this place. The complexity in Charles's eyes reverted to disgust. He abruptly released my hand, letting my glass-ridden legs crash back to the ground. You're truly incorrigible saying this just to elicit my pity, aren't you? In the past, you faked injuries to slander Jasmine, and now you've hurt yourself deliberately. Do you think I'll fall for it again? With that, Charles led the group away without a backward glance. Watching his resolute departing figure, an inexplicable emotion surged within my chest. Yet before I could savor this feeling, intense abdominal pain yanked me back to reality. Seeing the winding blood beneath me, I cried out, Charles, don't go. Please don't leave, save me, save our. Before I could finish, Charles slammed the car door and drove off with Jasmine. My vision grew increasingly hazy. Just before losing consciousness, a magnified face appeared before me, and in the blur, someone seemed to be desperately calling my name. Opening my eyes again, I found myself back on a hospital bed, though the decor was markedly more upscale than before. Seeing me awake, the nurse beside me politely said, Miss Anna, you're awake. My heart jolted. It had been ages since anyone addressed me as Miss Anna. Even those who despised me called me Mrs. out of courtesy. I tried to sit up but lacked strength. Noticing this, the nurse assisted me and propped a pillow behind my back. Embarrassed, I said, I'm sorry, I'm too fat. The young nurse's eyes reddened as she shook her head vigorously. No, Miss Anna, you're just ill. You were so beautiful before. Seeing my stunned gaze, she continued, Dean Ethan brought you here. On his desk, there's your. Before she finished, footsteps sounded at the door. Seeing Ethan's familiar face, I weakly lowered my head, burying myself in the blankets, unsure how to face this man who had cared for me like a brother. That year, we quarreled bitterly over Charles and parted on bad terms. Now, he's probably here to mock me. I must have become the laughingstock of the entire capital by now. The more I thought, the sadder I grew, unable to stifle my sobs. Ethan paused, then after a while, placed a hand on my shoulder. Cry if you need to, Anna, you must have endured immense injustice. During this period, I refrained from contacting Charles. The doctor said my physical ailments were treatable, but the psychological ones required my own struggle. I developed a severe binge-eating disorder. Though I wanted to vomit, I couldn't stop eating, mechanically consuming and regurgitating, leaving the floor in constant disarray. Upon regaining composure, I'd weep bitterly and pound my body, yet after crying, I still felt hungry. Those 6 months' experiences clung to me like a parasite, dragging me step by step into hell. Each time I lost control, the young nurse would rush to fetch Ethan. He never recoiled from my wretched state, merely sighed, handing me warm water after I vomited. "Anna, you must be braver. Food can fill your stomach's emptiness, but you must mend your soul piece by piece," he said. Gradually, I indeed began to recover. For whenever I looked at Ethan, I saw compassion in his eyes. He was the only person in the world who cared for me, and I didn't want to disappoint him. I slowly rediscovered joy in life, finally able to muster genuine smiles, though occasionally, I was still gripped by past fears. During another humiliating bout of induced vomiting, Charles arrived. He stood coldly aside until I finished, eyeing me with disgust. "Anna, disappearing without a word to hide in Ethan's hospital. I never knew you were so capable." I gazed quietly at his features, feeling a sudden unfamiliarity not with him, but within my heart. I hadn't thought of him in a long time. As I struggled to my feet in disarray, Charles's eyes fixed on my belly. He then gripped my wrist fiercely, his voice laden with venom. "You're pregnant? Jasmine was right, you've been with someone else all along." In the past, I would have wept and pleaded, insisting it was our child, but staring at my reddened wrist, I suddenly found it utterly pointless. I struggled free and met Charles's eyes. "Think whatever you wish." Charles stared at me in shock, then abruptly slammed his fist into the wall. "Anna, you're truly remarkable. I've told you, Jasmine is just my sister. Why do you keep doing such absurd things out of jealousy toward her, time and again?" Observing his stern demeanor, I found it utterly laughable, and I did laugh. "Charles, do you think I'm absurd? Dumping your pregnant wife into a den of wolves and ignoring her for 6 months, what right do you have to speak to me like this?" Charles's eyes widened sharply. "You say the child is mine?" A man like him, having cheated himself, seemed convinced everyone was unfaithful in love. I nodded decisively. "Yes, it's yours." Hearing this, Charles's expression softened, and his body trembled slightly. He leaned down, seemingly intent on listening to my belly. I stepped back subtly. "Once my body recovers, I'll abort this child." Charles straightened abruptly, his eyes filled with confusion. "Why, Anna? This is our child." I too was puzzled. "Exactly, because it's your child, so I won't give birth to it." Charles trembled uncontrollably. "No, this is my child, Charles's child. What right do you have to decide its fate?" As he spoke, he tugged my hand outward. "Come home with me. Anna, don't you love me? Didn't you go to great lengths to marry me? Now I forgive what you did to Jasmine. Let's start over." Unable to break free, I slapped Charles across the face in the struggle. He stood stunned, and as I watched the red, swollen mark emerge on his face, a sudden relief washed over me. Indeed, why should I torment myself? The fault is clearly theirs. They are the ones who should be punished and feel pain. I am not wrong. I shouldn't be treated this way. My love was pure, and it was they who sullied it and me. Recovering from the shock of the slap, Charles saw my expression, twisted with exhilaration. With a complex look, he pinned me against the wall. "Anna, what's wrong with you?" I looked up coldly, locking eyes with Charles. "What's wrong with me? You should ask your dear sister Jasmine." Charles sighed helplessly. "It's still jealousy, isn't it? Come back with me obediently, and I'll keep my distance from her henceforth." I shook my head. "Charles, this isn't resolved by mere distance. You conspired to send me to the nursing home, chained me up, let corpse-scented old men humiliate me, and forced me to eat endless fatty meat daily. Do you think simple distance can earn my forgiveness?" Charles gazed at me, eyes clouded with confusion. "No, Anna, I sent you there because Jasmine said your temperament was too rash, needing a quiet place to refine yourself." I burst into laughter. "Charles, do you believe your own words? Jasmine hates me so much. Do you honestly think she'd let her own brother treat me well? Seeing my frenzied expression, Charles panicked, raising a hand to my face. I dodged his touch and lightly wiped my own. Unbeknownst to me, my face was already drenched in tears. At that moment, Charles seemed transformed, his flustered look that of a child caught in wrongdoing. Just as he stammered to speak, Jasmine's voice echoed from the corridor's end, "Brother Charles, I've finally found you." Jasmine ran over while speaking, defiantly linking arms with Charles, only to be promptly shoved aside by him. Jasmine stared in shock at Charles, his face full of hostility, tears brimming in her eyes. Is this woman slandering me again? Brother Charles, don't believe her. Charles looked at Jasmine on the ground, brows furrowed. What kind of place is Victor's nursing home, exactly? Hearing this, Jasmine shot a fierce glance at me, her eyes laden with threat. I understood she had visited more than once while I was confined. Each visit, she'd have Victor drag me out, triumphantly recording my humiliation by the old men, afterward giggling as she warned me not to utter a word about what happened here. Otherwise, videos of the former Gu family heiress being treated like a dog would spread everywhere. Once, I was terrified. I feared Charles would find me filthy and leave me forever, but now I'm unafraid. I no longer want him. I stepped forward, squatted beside Jasmine, and, as she often did to me in the nursing home, patted her face. No one's vying for your Charles. Take the man you want and get lost. But first, return my bracelet. With that, I seized Jasmine's arm, attempting to remove the jade bracelet from her wrist. Jasmine struggled incessantly. I knew she didn't care for the bracelet, she simply enjoyed taking what was mine. Amid the tussle, Jasmine struck the wall behind her, then clutched her belly, pleadingly looking at Charles. Brother Charles, our child. Charles turned to me as if shocked. Anna, let me explain. She was drunk that day. I waved to cut him off. I don't care if you were drunk or dead drunk, I want my bracelet. Jasmine shielded her wrist, tears streaming as she looked to Charles. Charles's gaze shifted between us, then, gritting his teeth, he lifted Jasmine. Anna, wait for me. I'll explain everything. Jasmine nestled in Charles's arms, turning back to flash me a triumphant smile. I regarded their retreating figures indifferently and returned to the ward. When Charles reappeared, I had completed the abortion surgery. Ignoring the nurse's protests, he barged into my room. Seeing my flattened belly, Charles's eyes turned bloodshot. Anna, how could you be so heartless? I turned away, unwilling to face him, but he forcibly gripped my chin, making me meet his gaze. Jasmine's child isn't mine. She was drunk that day. I just took on the father's title to help her. I nodded casually. I know. Now, without tears or fuss, Charles seemed to strike cotton, his voice tinged with pleading. Anna, let's reconcile. I was too prideful before, unable to bear being called a freeloader. It was my fault. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Forgive me, Anna. As he spoke, tears welled in his eyes, but I turned away again. I've already hired a lawyer. After the divorce certificate, we'll never meet again. Charles grew frantic, veins bulging on his neck as he clenched his fists. Please, Anna, I can't live without you, though I didn't show it, that was just my pride. I do love you. Watching Charles's tears fall, I felt a momentary daze. Once, such a confession would have thrilled me to leap for joy, but now, his sight only repulsed me. Facing this disheveled Charles for the first time, I spoke slowly. You say you were wrong. What about my bracelet? At this, a spark of hope flashed in Charles's eyes. I'll get it back for you, Anna. Wait for me. 3 days passed, and he didn't return. My body had recovered. I booked a flight back to Ethan's hometown, where he said the tea was ready and invited me to assist. As the plane landed, the lawyer messaged that Charles refused the divorce and wished to see me. I replied succinctly, I won't see him. If he persists in refusing, we can proceed to litigation. Charles seemed transformed. He called incessantly, and after countless hang-ups, resorted to texting. Anna, I've retrieved the bracelet. When will you come for it? We're not divorcing. Where are you? I want to see you. Forgive me, I truly didn't know that would happen. I've warned everyone to stay silent. No one knows about it, and I don't mind. I'll take you to every event henceforth, okay? These things I once craved but couldn't attain, now laid out by him one by one, left me utterly unmoved. If I retain any feelings for Charles, it's only hatred, nothing more remains. Soon after, Ethan flew to find me. Upon meeting, he exclaimed, "Anna, how did you lose so much weight?" Meeting his gaze, I smiled, "Isn't thinner better?" To my surprise, Ethan shook his head, "Your health matters more than appearance." His words made my heart skip a beat. Once, to catch Charles's eye, I starved myself thin, yet he'd frown at my gaunt frame. "Looking like this, taking you out is simply embarrassing." For this, I ate boiled vegetables daily, even resorting to diet pills. I never imagined someone would swoop in like a savior, pulling me from the mire to say my health mattered more. Seeing my tearful expression, Ethan scratched his hair awkwardly. "I didn't mean you're not good, Anna, don't misunderstand, I interrupted, "Ethan, do you like me?" In the sunlight, his face flushed to his ears. "Yes, but Anna, I don't want to take advantage. I've liked you for a long time, but back then, you only saw Charles. Now, with your emotions still healing, I won't force a decision." I closed my eyes slightly, hiding my tears, "But I've been married and pregnant, I still." Ethan gently covered my mouth. "Anna, none of this is your fault. In my heart, you'll always be the best." Ethan set aside work to stay with me at the tea estate for a long while. We picked and processed tea together, life slowing into a tranquil, beautiful rhythm. Sometimes he'd recall the past. "Anna, do you remember that adults' party when I accidentally toppled the champagne tower and cried in fear? You swooped in like a child king, patting your chest to reassure me." I strained to recall. "Somewhat I said I did it, you said you did, and later, we were confined together." Ethan laughed, then his eyes reddened mid-laughter. He hugged me tightly. "Back then, I thought you were amazing, like a radiant angel sent to earth to save me. You know, I'm not my father's real son, just an adopted punching bag for his rage. That day, without you, he might have beaten me to death." Ethan's embrace was warm, yet I shivered involuntarily. He held me tighter, so small and frail, yet so brave. "I vowed that day to become as formidable as you, Anna, you saved me." "Sadly, I returned too late, I'm sorry." I hugged him back. Neither of us was wrong. Ethan, tied up with work, couldn't stay long. After he left, Charles unexpectedly appeared. Upon seeing me, Charles's tears fell. "Anna, I've finally found you." Observing his pained expression, I found it utterly tedious. "You know I don't want to see you." Charles, no longer the spirited man of old, seemed on the verge of collapse. "I know I was wrong. I truly didn't expect that to happen. Jasmine said it was just to teach you peace of mind." I shook my head slowly. "She said it, and you believed her, Charles, so why are you here?" Perhaps my sarcasm misled him. He hurriedly pulled a bracelet from his bag, presenting it like a treasure. "Look, your item, I brought it back. I'll never see Jasmine again. Anna, can you forgive me?" I still shook my head. "The bracelet was always mine, you gave it to someone else, and now it's returned. Are you proud of that?" Charles's upright posture slumped, his eyes pleading. "Anna, I know my mistakes are irreparable, but if you'd forgive me, I'd do anything." I looked at Charles with interest. "Then go die, take Jasmine and Victor with you, and don't forget those who bullied me." Despair filled Charles's gaze. "Anna, you weren't like this before." I nodded indifferently. "Before meeting you, I was indeed carefree." The color drained from Charles's face as he stood rigid before me, uninterested in his regret. I turned and closed the door. Soon after, Ethan returned with a suicide note Charles had entrusted to him for me. I didn't open it, handing it straight to the lawyer to settle the estate. Shortly thereafter, I saw breaking news on TV. A wealthy businessman poisoned the nursing home's food, killing all the elderly residents while they slept. The nursing home's owner and his sister were found in the basement, their deaths gruesome, alongside the businessman's corpse. Frowning at the mosaic TV images, I switched to an entertainment channel. At that moment, Ethan approached with freshly cut fruit. "Eat more, your appetite's been poor lately, don't lose weight again." Smiling, I popped fruit into my mouth, nestling into his warm, solid embrace. Those who harmed me can no longer do evil. I will forget that memory and move forward bravely as I once did.